Chair recognises the honourable member for Mount Pearl Southlands.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and it's an honour to stand in the House Assembly once again to debate, interim supply. I'm not going to get into the whole debate over, the politics around this. I will, because it's happened on both sides. There's no doubt about that. But the only thing I will say, though, is that the only objection that I would have with the process is that if we were just talking about a regular money bill where you could stand up and talk about whatever you wanted, that's one thing. The issue here, though, that I think everybody on this side has, that is eating into the budgetary debate time, and that's really our issue, is that we would rather see the budget and have that extra time to debate the actual budget itself, as opposed to just taking the time away from the budget and stand up and talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, which is really what you're going to see happening. We saw yesterday, we're going to see again, there will no doubt be members up talking about what a wonderful district they have, and I went to this tea party and that tea party, and I'm doing great work for my district. That's got nothing to do with the actual budget, and we think that time would be better spent debating the budget. But with that said, I have two choices. I can either sit here and say nothing and watch the government members get up one after another and use up all the time this morning, because it's going to happen, or I can take advantage of some of that time myself to at least raise what I consider to be some important issues. So I have a couple that I want to just put on the record at least. Not saying that anything is going to change, but they are issues, and I think that they need to be put out there. So the first one I want to talk, and these are healthcare related. So the first one I want to talk to, and this is a story that's been circulating now on social media for a while. I think it was in the news as well, and it relates to a couple, a husband and wife. They were, let me see, they were. The gentleman is 90 years old. His wife is will be 87 years old in May, and the wife now is in Clark's Beach. Both of them were in Clark's Beach because they were level 2 in a level 2 facility. The husband took ill, I guess, and as a result of that, he's considered a level 3. And he ended up getting moved to St. Luke's in a level 3 facility. Now, obviously he needed to go there because he needed the care. But the issue that we have is that here he is now having to leave Clark's Beach and go to St. Luke's home, 90-year-old man, while his 87-year-old wife, his partner for the last 50-odd, 60-odd years, whatever it is left in Clark's Beach. And she can't move with him because she's only considered a level 2, and she can't go to a level 3 facility. Now, there was a time, certainly I know at St. Luke's, there was a time before it was taken over by Eastern Health, when it was run by, I guess, the Anglican Church and so on, where basically if you went to St. Luke's and you stayed in the cottages and Bishop Mead Manor and so on, when you got to a point that you could no longer stay in those cottages, that you would automatically go into the home that's there. And that way it was called, what at the time they called it, was under a former administration in their earlier days. I think the concept was called aging in place. That was the concept they were going for. So in other words, as a senior, you could go to a facility. You could start off perhaps in a cottage, and then when you couldn't stay in the cottage anymore, perhaps you could go into an apartment, and then you would go into the home. Now, of course, we got this first available bed policy, and of course, they're not allowing level 2s into a level 3 facility. And from a dollars and cents perspective, I understand why that is, because they're saying, if we've got a level 3 facility and we've got doctors and RNs or whatever on staff, it's much more costly, and so the cost per bed, we can't tie up a level 3 bed and the cost associated with a person who's only a level 2, because there's much more expensive. So I understand the dollars and cents, but surely, God, from a compassionate point of view, somewhere along the way, compassion has to play a role in this. And in this particular case, Here we have a couple, as I said. He's 90, she's going to be 87 in May, been together practically their whole lives, and now they're separated, Clark's Beach and St. John's. And there's something terribly wrong with that picture. He'll probably die of a broken heart before she does. And the stress that it's having on that individual, both individuals, not just one, both of them, and the stress on the families is just absolutely terrible. It's absolutely appalling. And I appeal to all members of the House Assembly that we need to find a better way of taking care of our seniors. And I'm not pinning it on this administration. They've only been there a year or so. This didn't just happen overnight. This is something Eastern Health has been doing now for the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, whatever it is, when they changed the policy. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying to all members of the House that this is a real situation, real people. This could be my grandmother or grandfather tomorrow, could be yours, could be your parents, or, God willing, if we live long enough, it could be you or I. And just imagine now, you're married, you know, with your spouse, you've raised family, you've got grandkids, whatever, the love of your life, your soulmate, your partner. And after all those years, you get separated like that, not even being able to see your husband or your wife or whatever. I remember when my mom passed, and my dad was never the same, never. And for 10 years he lived after she had passed, and he was never the same. And I can remember at my dad's wake, a gentleman came in. I didn't know who he was, and he came up to me, and he was the caretaker. I didn't know, but he told me he was the caretaker at the Salvation Army graveyard where my mom was buried. They're both buried now. And he came in because he said, I knew something had happened to your dad. I said, what do you mean? He said, I knew something had happened because for the last 10 years, he said, I could look at he said, I could look at my watch, I could look at the day, and your dad was there every single day. For 10 years that your mom passed, he was there, sat there in his lawn chair every single morning, basically the same time every day, for 10 years. So I know so that's just an example of the connection that people had, because she was his life. She was his life. And when she died, part of him did. And that was the comfort he had, was to be able to at least be close to her. Now imagine when you're alive. Imagine when you have that situation of a couple been together their whole life, and they're alive. And now you're going to say to an 87-year-old woman and a 90-year-old man, we're going to separate you. You're going to stay in Clark's Beach, and you're going to go to St. John's. Something terribly wrong, Madam Speaker. Something terribly wrong with that system. I don't care. Money be damned. I apologize if that's an unparliamentary word, but anyway, you get my point. Somewhere along the way in this equation, it cannot be simply about dollars and cents. It cannot be. We're talking about human lives. This is not widgets. This is people. This is human beings. And I urge the government, I urge the Minister of Health and Community Services, and I know he knows what I'm saying is right here, and I know that he would want to do the right thing. I know everybody would. We just need to, and it's not going to happen overnight too. I understand that. But we really need to look at a better model. I think this whole model, like I said, that they had years ago, or at least that was what they were moving towards, this aging in place model, is something we really need to look at having. So that, for example, if you decided you were going to go to, again, I'll just use St. Luke's as an example. At St. Luke's now, you have cottages. You got Bishop Mead Manor, you got cottages, and then you got the home, which is level 3. You need something in between. You need something in between. So you need like an assisted living facility also at that same location, so that you could go from one stage to the next, but you get to stay at the same place for your entire time, where you have familiar surroundings, you know the staff, you have friends, you're close to family, and you get to live and eventually pass away in dignity. Thank you, Madam Speaker.